So, hello there, and welcome back to another Night of the Movies podcast. And in these podcasts, I talk all things movies and TV and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I'm reviewing Good Omens Season 2. But just before I do that, I should say what I say at the start of every podcast I do, which is, if you are watching this podcast on YouTube, hello there to my viewers. But you prefer to listen to your podcasts, well, guess what? You can with this one as well at Night of the Movies on Spotify. And if you are already listening to this podcast on Spotify, hello there to podcast listeners, then you can also check this podcast out visually on my YouTube channel at Night of the Movies on that platform too. Likewise, wherever you may be watching or listening to the podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the podcast, of course. And leave me some feedback on things to improve on in future podcasts, because there's always things to improve on, and feedback is, as ever, much appreciated. So, let's get into it. Good Omens Season 2. So, this is a continuation, as you know, if you hadn't guessed already, this is a continuation from Good Omens Season 1, which came out in 2019, and I think Neil Gaiman was the showrunner of the first season. He's continued to be the showrunner into this season, and this season has many same cast members, many returning cast members. Not everybody has come back from the first series, but you still have the likes of John Hamm, who was in the first series. He's come back as the Angel Gabriel. You have Miranda Richardson coming back, and of course David Tennant and Michael Sheen coming back as the main two leads. And I really enjoyed the first season of Good Omens. I actually reviewed it on this channel, I think. Yeah, I think I did. I watched it, I think just when the pandemic was kicking in. I watched it, I think it was during the first lockdown, and I really enjoyed that show. It wasn't on the same level as, say, Succession or The Sopranos or The Bear or Andor, but not every show needs to be the best TV show out there. You know, some shows can just be enjoyable and can just be wonderful and delightful to watch, and that's what the first series was like for me. It was a really lovely series that I looked forward to watching, and I didn't love all of the first series of Good Omens, but there was a lot of it which I did really, and I mean really enjoy, and I had a great time with it. Granted, I haven't rewatched the first series since watching it for the first time all the way back in 2020. I think that's when I watched it for the first time. I haven't rewatched it since then, but I remember having a great time watching it and thinking the series was really good overall. Now we're on with Season 2, and Season 2 was announced. I was looking forward to it. I was excited. I wouldn't say I was highly anticipating this second season. I'm not an avid fan of Good Omens. I'm not a huge fan of this show. But when they announced the second season, I was like, oh, that's interesting, because I know they weren't meant to. You know that this wasn't meant to be a multiple season show. It was just meant to be a one and done season. But they're doing a second series. Neil Gaiman, who I think wrote the book that this show is based on. If I'm not sure, by the way, I don't really know about the source material, but Neil Gaiman, who was heavily involved with the first series, I think he was a co-writer on the first series of many episodes, and continues to be a co-writer here, and wrote the book that the first season was based on. You know, he never planned for a second series, but then when I heard he was attached, I was like, oh, they must have a story to tell then. They must have a story to tell if Neil Gaiman, and I'm not even sure if I pronounced his name correctly there, so apologies for him not, but if Neil Gaiman is still attached as... is it Neil Gaiman? Yeah, I think it's Neil Gaiman, sorry. Yeah, if Neil Gaiman is still attached to this project, I think they've got a story to tell. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm not highly anticipating it, but I'm looking forward to it, especially as they got Michael Sheen and David Tennant back too. And last week, I finally sat down to watch this second season of Good Omens. It came out well over a week ago now, but I've just been so busy recently with, watching all these movies and trying to catch up on those TV shows and be rewatching The Bear. But I sat down to watch Good Omens Season 2 last week, and you know what? I really enjoyed it. I had a really great time with this show. It is a wondrously imaginative series, and there's nothing quite like it on TV right now. You know, it's quirky, it's really strange in places, and the part when it feels like it's verging on parody. There are parts when it feels like it's almost going into that Monty Python territory, but it always brings it back. And I think one of the main reasons it does that is because of the lead two cast members, Michael Sheen and David Tennant. They make this show for me. I absolutely love their dynamic. I love their chemistry. I love seeing those two characters. I can never pronounce Michael Sheen's character's name in this show. I'm going to try and do it now. One sec. Give me a moment. Azraphane. I can never pronounce it. I'm sorry. I know they even make a joke about that in this season of Good Omens. About pronouncing Michael Sheen's character's name correctly. Azraphane. I just can't pronounce it. So apologies about that. But I love the dynamic between those two characters. David Tennant's Demon Crowley and Michael Sheen's character, who's meant to be this angel. I love that dynamic because that chalk and cheese relationship. But at the same time, they can't live without each other. I love how that is done in the show and how they almost rely on each other in parts. And yeah, that for me is the shining part of this series in its entirety. It was the best part of series 1 and it continues to be the best part of this series. It's still the best part of season 2. And Jon Hamm is so funny in this second season of Good Omens. They really tapped into Jon Hamm's comedic side, which I really hadn't seen in any other TV shows or movies other than his recurring role in 30 Rock as one of Liz Lemon's boyfriends, and he was very funny in that show, but I haven't really seen him do funny elsewhere. He's a good actor. I really liked what I've seen in him. I really liked what I've seen him in, but I haven't really seen him do much comedy in the past. And then you watch him in this show, though, and he is so funny. And every single time he's on screen, I am laughing my head off. And I hope he's back for season 3. I'm not going to go into spoilers, but, if they want to, they can leave that character behind now. But I really hope they bring Jon Hamm back, even if it's just for one episode in season 3. Because I know the plan is to do season 3 of this show, and that hasn't been confirmed as I'm recording this podcast today. And I think one of the reasons for that, though, is because of the actor strikes and the writer strikes, which are currently taking place. But if they do a season 3, I want Jon Hamm to come back because he's great in this series. And I love seeing all these guest stars coming out. There's a lot of really, really funny guest stars that are coming out of the show, which I think are a bit of an inside joke, particularly with certain actors involved in the show. And I think Miranda Richardson is also great. She's back from the first series, and I think she's great once again in this series. But for me, like I've already mentioned, the main draw of the show, the thing that works so well, the thing that makes all the series work, that keeps it focused, that keeps it totally consistent, that keeps everything working, is the central dynamic between Michael Sheen and David Tennant. I love David Tennant so much as an actor. He's one of my favourite actors working today, and I can't wait to see him back as the Doctor in November of this year. He's coming back for 3 Doctor Who Christmas specials for the 60th anniversary, and I can't wait to see them. And on the topic of Doctor Who, this series has a lot of nods to Doctor Who. This series of Good Omens. In fact, I would say that this season of Good Omens feels like a series of Doctor Who. And I don't mean that in a negative way, by the way. I don't mean that in a bad way. Each episode, most of the episodes have a self-contained story that has a beginning, middle, and end. There's setup and there's payoff in almost every episode, with the exception of the last episode, the penultimate episode, which is a cliffhanger, and then the last episode, which has a bit of a cliffhanger, but it does have a conclusive end. Each episode in this series of Good Omens has beginning, middle, and end, and setup and payoff, and it very much feels like Doctor Who, with this one underlying story going on throughout the entirety of season 2. That's what we get in each season of Doctor Who. There's always a story going on underneath every other story that's going on in each season of Doctor Who, and I really liked that about it. The fact that, it felt like Doctor Who, and it feels as well like Neil Gaiman, who is a co-writer, and I think every episode of this season of Good Omens, if I'm not mistaken, I think he is. It feels as well like he heard that David Tennant was coming back for the 60th anniversary and went, I want a piece of the action, but I'm not going to go out in Doctor Who because Russell T Davies is doing a great job with that. Well, he's going to do a great job with it. It's Russell T Davies. Everybody knows he's going to do a great job with the 60th anniversary specials because Russell T Davies is a damn good writer. But it feels like Neil Gaiman went, Russell T Davies can deal with that, but I want to have a piece of the action of Doctor Who myself. And there were about 1,000 Doctor Who references in this season of Good Omens. I don't think you've even noticed them all. It's so wonderful to watch that, though. And I do think it's so wonderful to watch, all these little Good Omens references, little Doctor Who references in this series, even to the point that there are references to Doctor Who that didn't involve David Tennant. Like, there's one point in the show, and this isn't a spoiler, but there's one point in the show where David Tennant wears a fez, and if you watch the Matt Smith era of Doctor Who, he was always obsessed with fezzes, Matt Smith's Doctor was, and so there was a little nod to there which I really liked. And also, David Tennant's performance in this season of Good Omens particularly reminded me of his performance as the Doctor. It was emulating a lot of his energy as the Doctor. And the way David Tennant plays Crowley, every time he walks into the room, he's got this swagger about him, and he just owns every single scene he's in. Michael Sheen is wonderful in this series. He's fabulous as the Angel. Again, I can't pronounce his name to save my life, the character's name anyway, but I love that character. I love that character. But David Tennant's the best part of this show. Every time he walks into a room, you're just like, yeah, you tune up the scenery and you're doing that, but it's working so damn well. And I love all the hairstyles that Michael Sheen and David Tennant have in this series as well. Like, every single time you see them with a different hairstyle, it's an absolute treat. And I think David Tennant has the best wig acting I've seen from anybody, period. And, Michael Sheen, as Wendy mentioned, is just absolutely wonderful in the show. And, yeah, I think them two really make the series work for me. If we didn't have them two, if that main chemistry between the main two cast members didn't work, then I don't think I would like the series as much as I do. But the fact is, though, it does work. And so I do enjoy the series a lot. I will say, though, I don't think this show is binge-worthy. I don't like using that phrase, but I've used it quite a bit in past TV reviews over this year. I don't think it's a sort of show you can binge. I don't think it is. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but I also wouldn't say it's a positive either. Like a lot of the shows which I talked about this year, you can binge. You could probably binge the Full Monty series. You could probably binge The Bear. I mean, you could definitely binge The Bear. You could binge Succession. I hate using that word, but I've used it about 5 times already in this review. But the point is, this isn't a series, at least the second series of Good Omens anyway. Maybe you could do the first series. I think I watched it with my family. I think we watched it quite quickly, so maybe you could binge the first series. But the second series, for me, didn't feel like a series that you could sit down and watch all in one go. I watched it daily. And I liked watching it daily because I always had that, I watched it every night, and I always had that thing to look forward to at the end of the day, like, oh, I'm going to watch a new episode of Good Omens tonight, and I was really looking forward to it. But I wouldn't say it's binge-worthy TV, if you get what I mean. Like, it's not a show which you can watch all in one go. I think, each episode's got beginning, middle, and end, and that's really good about the episode. I love the way the structure, the clear, a lot of planning that's been going on into each and every episode. Clearly, a lot of thought being put into each episode, but it also means for me that it's not a show that I can just sit down and go, oh yeah, I'm going to watch all of Good Omens season 2 tonight, because I just don't think you can do that. And so I'm not saying that's a huge negative, but it's definitely something to note. And I will say I enjoyed most of the episodes of this season of Good Omens, but I didn't really like episode 2. I didn't hate it, I just didn't really like it. It felt rather unengaging and inconsequential. The episode for me, I'm still thinking now, and I watched the episode about a week ago, I'm thinking, okay, why was that episode important? What was the significance of that episode for the rest of the series? And there were parts of episode 2 which I liked, at least I think it was episode 2. There were part of episode 2 which I liked, that there was a David Tennant family affair in that episode. David Tennant's father-in-law, Peter Davison, who, side note here, played the 7th Doctor Who, and obviously David Tennant played what most people consider the most beloved Doctor Who in the 10th Doctor. So, there's a little Doctor Who in the family there. David Tennant's father-in-law is a Doctor Who, and David Tennant is a Doctor himself from Doctor Who. So, there's some Doctor Who going on in the family. And so you had Peter Davison in that episode, who was David Tennant's father-in-law. And then you had David Tennant's son, Ty Tennant, who was most recently in House of the Dragon, the Game of Thrones prequel series early this year. He was also in this episode, and I liked the David Tennant family affair you got in episode 2. And again, there was a good dynamic between Michael Sheen and David Tennant in the episode. It's always a treat to watch them two act off each other, and John Hamm was funny in that episode. But for me, episode 2, I don't know, there's just something about it where it didn't click with me. Every other episode I found enjoyment in. I mean, I'm not saying every episode was great in this season, but I had enough good. There was enough good element in the other episodes for me to say that they were good episodes. I can't, if you get what I mean. I'm not sure if I'm making sense, but I can't really say the same about episode 2. It did have its moments, but for me it was an unengaging episode for the most part. I didn't really get into it the same way I got into some other episodes of this series. Like, I really got into episode 3 and 4. And I really got into episodes 5 and 6 as well. Not so much episode 1, but that was like, I was adjusting back into the whole world of Good Omens. But episode 2 I never got into, and it felt inconsequential. When that episode finished, I was like, yeah, that was alright. I liked the David Tennant family affair in that episode, and I liked the dynamic between the main two. John Hamm was funny. Everything else, I can take it or leave it, you know what I mean? And this series, it has its ups and downs. There are some moments in the series where I'm like, this wasn't as good as it could be. Not all the comedy works for me. It's a very funny season of television, but not all the comedy works for me. And I do have some problems with this series. And some episodes are better than others. I mean, but that's the same with any show. So, that is what it is. However, saying all that, I really did like this series of Good Omens, and it feels like a light-hearted version of the Sandman TV show, which came out last year on Netflix, and which Neil Gaiman was also a showrunner on. And this series feels like a light-hearted version of the Sandman, though, because the Sandman, if anyone hasn't seen it, it's very dense, it's very dark, and at times it's upsetting. I loved the Sandman. It has some very, very, very well written episodes. There's one episode that takes place in a diner in the Sandman, which I still think about daily. I haven't actually rewatched that episode. I probably should, because I think about it so much. But you get the point. The Sandman is absolutely brilliant. If you haven't seen that show, definitely recommend it. And this season of Good Omens feels like a light-hearted version of Sandman. It still deals with a lot of dark ideas and themes and some upsetting ideas and some really dense ideas of that, but it does it in a more fun and enjoyable way. Like, the Sandman is at times depressing. It is. I mean, I love that show, but it's depressing. But Good Omens is always, well, for the most part, with the exception of the end of the series, and I won't spoil what happens because this is a non-spoiler review, but for the most part, this season of Good Omens is uplifting. It's wonderful to watch. And so, yeah, this series does feel like a light-hearted version of Sandman. And I'm not saying that as a positive or a negative, it's just something I wanted to note down again. It's just something that I thought was noteworthy in this series. The fact that it feels like a light-hearted version of Sandman. And I probably do prefer Sandman as a piece of television overall. But Good Omens might be the more fun show to watch. You know what I mean? Good Omens might be the more enjoyable show. And so I like both probably equally. Because Sandman is a great, and I mean great, TV series. And Good Omens, but it's, it's dark. And Good Omens isn't that dark, though. With the exception of a couple elements, it isn't that dark, and it's more of just a, what do I title this podcast? A wondrously imaginative series, because that's what it really is. There's so many elements to like about this series, and I probably didn't like it as much as I liked series 2, as much as I liked series 1. I have some great memories of watching series 1 and really getting into it, and I can't say I got as much into this season's Good Omens as I did the first series. Saying that, though, the story, they've left it open, it's clearly not ended, and maybe series 2 and 3 are going to have more tying in with one another. I mean, I don't know. We don't know yet. Season 3 hasn't happened. And this season has a conclusive end, so I don't actually know if that's going to be the case. It's feeling like each season of Good Omens, it's going to be its own entity. And I'm fine about that. But all I'm saying is that I didn't quite like Season 2 as much as I liked Season 1. This season's Good Omens, though, has so many great elements. And again, it's just that dynamic, that the dynamic between Michael Sheen and David Tennant, which really makes it work for me. Honestly, if that element wasn't in there, I think I'd hate this show. But, you know, I love how imaginative the series is, which is one thing I really mentioned. I love how imaginative and just different it is. It's a very unique show, and you know, that's not going to work for everyone, but it does work for me, and I think the directing in the series at times feels cinematic. You know, I think all the episodes are directed by Douglas McKinnon in this series, and he does a really good job. Really good job directing a lot of these episodes and making them feel sprawling and, as I mentioned before, almost cinematic, which is weird because this show was made for Prime Video. It wasn't made to be seen in a cinema, at least as far as I'm aware, and yet each episode has this directing to it, has this direction to it, which really grabs you and takes you into what's going on in each and every episode and in these stories. And I also love the musical score in this series as well, which is another thing I haven't really mentioned yet. And the musical score, I didn't know this till just before the review when I looked it up on IMDb. The musical score in Good Omens is done by David Arnold. Of course it is. David Arnold is a great composer. He did the music for Independence Day all the way back in 1996, and he did many of the Bond scores for Pierce Brosnan's era's Bond and some of the early Daniel Craig film scores, you know, when he was Bond as well. And he made some amazing scores. And he did a score for the Sherlock TV show, Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman as well, which had a fantastic musical score, and he does a great job scoring this series. A lot of variations of the main Good Omens theme that happen in the credits of every episode, and I really liked that. Plus, on top of all that, this series, Good Omens, is only 6 episodes, and that's about the length that Obi-Wan was. That's about the length that most Disney Plus Marvel or Star Wars or whatever shows, most shows on Disney Plus are about 6 episodes, and they don't always feel that fulfilling though. They don't feel like they've been well thought out, and they feel like they were conceived as a movie and then cut down into 6 episodes. Yet Good Omens Season 2 doesn't feel like that. Each episode is about an hour long and it feels fulfilling and it feels like a story's being told. Sure, I didn't love episode 2, but most of the episodes in this series were fulfilling and they had payoff and they felt like they were well thought out and well planned and well structured. And you know what? I really enjoyed this season of Good Omens. I really did. Did I like it as much as Series 1? Maybe not. I'd have to rewatch Series 1 though. And, you know, rewatch it quickly so I can compare both. But right now, I liked it. I just hit my bike there. I really like this series. Mainly because of Michael Sheen and David Tennant. And I know I've gone on about them in this review, but God, they're the best part of this show. By a long shot. And I hope a Season 3 happens. Again, it hasn't been confirmed yet because of the strikes that are taking place. The actors' strike and the writers' strike. But I hope as soon as those strikes end, we get a 3rd series confirmation. And we hear that it's happening soon rather than later. Because I want to see where this story goes. I really liked the last episode, and they left it on a bit of a cliffhanger. I'm not going to go into spoilers what happened, but yeah, I liked the way the series ended, and you know what? I want to see a 3rd series quick. I do. But at the same time, I can probably wait. And you know, overall, I really enjoyed this show, as I already mentioned, and it's wondrously imaginative, and so for that reason, I'm going to say that Good Omens Season 2, yeah, I'm going to give it a 7.8 out of 10. The reason I'm giving that rating is because I give things that I love or that I think are brilliant an 8 out of 10 or above, and I don't love Good Omens. It just doesn't click with me on that level the same way, say, The Bear does or Andor does. However, there is a lot in this show to enjoy, and there's a lot in the show which I think is great. And so even though I don't love it, I'm giving it that rating of a 7.8 out of 10 because I think it's better than just a solid series of television. but I don't think it's quite fantastic, if you get what I mean. I think it's between a 7.5 and an 8 out of 10. Just trying to justify my rating there, if you get my thinking. But, I just don't think it's quite excellent or brilliant or anything like that. But you know what? It's really, really good fun. It's really good fun, and it's imaginative, and I love the set design, which is one thing I haven't mentioned. I've been speaking for over 25 minutes, and I haven't mentioned the set design. I love the set design, and the way it's directed, and the production design, and oh god, there's all these little details as well, which are thrown in, and I love all that, and there's so much of this show which is just so entertaining, and it's really well structured and really well planned out, and it's focused as well. The series feels focused, and the reason that it works, the ultimate reason that this show worked, that Good Omens Season 2 works, is because of Michael Sheen and David Tennant. Their dynamic as the angel and the demon. I can't pronounce Michael Sheen's character's name. What is it? Aziraphale? I just can't pronounce it. Right, so this isn't an add-on. I just wanted to add this on here because I realised how you pronounce Michael Sheen's character's name. I finally got it. Aziraphale. I think that's how you pronounce his character's name in the show. Finally got it. Just after I finished recording, I looked at the name again. I was like, what? How do you actually pronounce it? And then I just realised it's Aziraphale. That's how you pronounce his name. Finally got it. Anyway, back to the podcast. But the dynamic between them two is why this show works, and why it's just so lovely and delightful to watch. Not every show has to be the standard of Succession, The Bear, Andor, Sopranos, and whatever your favourite show is. And some shows can just be enjoyable. Some shows can just be sweet and lovely to watch. And that's what this series is. That's what Good Omens is. And that is why I've titled this podcast Good Omens Season 2, the Wondrously Imaginative series continues. Because it does. And this show is wondrously imaginative. And that is why I really liked it as a whole. And so Good Omens Season 2, I'm going to say that it's a 7.8 out of 10 from me. Anyway, guys, now that is it for today's podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed hearing my thoughts on Good Omens Season 2, and if you have seen Good Omens Season 2, if you've seen any of Good Omens, let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section below. Maybe you didn't love Season 2, maybe even you like Series 2, but you're a big fan of Series 1, you're let down by this second series. Please let me know your thoughts, or maybe you loved Series 2 though. Maybe you love Series 2. Whatever your thoughts on Good Omens Seasons 1 and or 2, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you haven't yet, please do click down below and like, subscribe on this podcast. I look forward to many more podcasts coming very soon on this channel. Thank you as always for watching or listening, and I will see you guys again soon. But bye for now. Bye.